Okay, we're live. Welcome to 6G Agenda. We are here for the book club again on a Monday. It's book club Monday. I don't know if you guys saw, but speaking of Mondays, I started a thing today. Justin, did you see it?
I did see it.
Yeah, dude. It's
The
wait,
fucking
what
pant
was it?
leg and shit.
Yeah. What was it? What did I name it though? I actually already forgot. Everything's
Masonic. Everything Masonic Monday.
Everything's Masonic Mondays, dude.
Yeah.
So today, for the Everything's Masonic Mondays, I put up the pant leg. So you got the pant leg for Freemasonry in the first degree of initiation.
Yep.
They raise a pant leg. It's a part of this whole symbolic thing. And that's part of a gang thing too, right? Where they raise the left pant leg and shit. So
Yeah, homie.
I put those next to each other with LL Cool J. He's got his pant leg raised. And then you got the Freemasonic dude. He's got like a noose around his neck and his eyes. He's got a blindfold on.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Anyway, so check that out on the socials. Otherwise, welcome. We are going to be getting into secret teachings of all ages. And speaking of Freemasons, Mr. Manly P. Hall, 33rd degree himself. It's going to be a lot of Masonic symbology. We're going to get deep into it. So if you want to know all about what the Freemasons think and feel and how they look at symbology, we're going to find out. This might be a long book club session. May take little intermittent breaks some Mondays because it's going to be a while to break this boy down. Cake in a cup, dude. Welcome with your bowl full. Hell yeah, dude. You chill back and I try not to partake, while we're on here just because I had a comment from a listener one time say, try getting less baked. And I'm like, well, no, but I'll make sure I'm ready better. How about that? I'll compromise with you. So anyway, right pant leg is a push bike. It's a push bike rider. Hell yeah, dude. That's also like a crip thing. So yeah, we're live on a few platforms, so that's cool. Hopefully some people pull up. We're gonna be breaking down the author of Secret Teachings of All Ages. If you're not familiar, Manly P. Hall is a major influential person when it comes to the New Age movement, especially the philosophical, aka Theosophical Society. So we could pull up Manly P. Hall here. This is the guy. It's a great picture,
Fucking creepy dude, bro.
He's got eyes that make you wonder,
He's yeah, I don't even know. It's just
eyes
serial
that
killer
make you
eyes for
wonder, dude.
real.
It's something about it, right? But very philosophical guy, very smart. Holy shit. Yeah, so that's cool, great. I just got stuck on this page, so that's fun. Okay,
Oh,
here we
nice,
are.
dude. You get
Yeah,
stuck
I'll do
staring
it.
at him.
So Secret Teachings of All Ages, here it is. Manly P. Hall. He is the writer. This is the version I have. Highly recommend getting it if you're into really doing a deep dive on some cool symbolic shit. I mean, like I said, we're going to be going through the whole book probably. So, I mean, hey, go ahead and buy it. It's worth the buy. I could read it 10 times and I probably still wouldn't get it all. Like all the symbology out of it. It's definitely a layered thing.
I'm gonna
So, yeah,
have
the
to look at that one.
philosophical. Wait, go ahead. What?
I'm gonna have to look at that one.
It's worth it, bro. I mean,
Yeah.
dude, first chapter is about secret societies and like symbolism. And then the second chapter is all about Atlantis. And that's what we're going to be getting into today. Today's going to be a real deep dive on the Atlantis chapter. It's going to be a
Yeah.
good time. But here
See,
it
I'm
is,
gonna
dude.
have to look at this shit just so I
I've
can
read this
keep up with
motherfucker
this
so many
shit.
times, the pages are falling out.
Damn, dude. Looks like you spilled milk on it.
Dude, I've done a lot of things to it, dude. Just reading it all the time. I got
Whoa.
kids running around. No. Pause, bro. No, dude, I got kids running around, bro. It's a wild day.
Yeah.
Wish I had a bucket of cake and ice cream right now. Hell yeah, dude. Don't
Same.
don't talk about that. I have a terrible sweet tooth. I'm gonna be a skinny diabetic.
What about the pudding, dude?
That's what I mean. I'm a big pudding guy. You know all about that. Dude, we talked about that on one of the episodes, didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh, what episode was that? I
I
forgot that
don't
I
know,
did
dude.
that.
It was maybe a month ago, but
Yeah,
you went crazy real quick. You went
I
0 to
talked about it
100
on the
about some
show.
pudding.
Dude, yeah, because I have an indulgence problem with pudding, bro. I just love it. Like, there's a point in time whenever that's all I could get, women are pudding.
Yeah.
I could only get pudding. So, and I would choose pudding. You know what I'm saying? Never
I
got
got you.
fat
Yeah,
though, dude.
dude.
I got the best fucking metabolism God gifted me with.
Yeah, you're blessed.
but the blood sugars are still what they are, right? So you can't
Yeah.
stop that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, the secret teachings of all ages. Good times. We are going to get into who Manly P. Hall is and what this book is. What are we getting into? So that's going to be great. I really don't have anything to show you here, so I'm just going to take you off. So Manly P. Hall, he is a Canadian mystic. He's like a writer. He wrote at least 100 books. He's one of those types that it's like, come on, bro, how do you write 100 books? Probably because some of them are like this thin.
Damn.
Like this motherfucker's like some notes. You know what I'm saying? So he was born in 1901. He died in 1990. He was a Canadian-born author, mystic, and philosopher, but he was best known for his work in the esoteric traditions, which is what we love to talk about here, symbolism and secret societies. So he was what you would call an expert on secret societies, esoteric. Like he was the guy that the secret societies went to for knowledge. You know what I mean? He knew he like rewrote the book on the new age and how they look at it. You could even say that the new age came out of his writings with Helena Blavatsky and a couple other people. So very influential, very important person. And the secret teachings of all ages is what we're going to get into. Probably his most famous work. They call it the Encyclopedia of Ancient Wisdom, Mystery Schools, and Occult Symbolism. So we're going to just spend a while just getting through that in the book club. It's going to be awesome. Hell yeah, dude. So we got some fans of this. Equilibrium, welcome. He's deep into it. I love that. Freemasonry later in life, Hall was initiated as a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason. It further cemented his reputation in the occult and Masonic circles. The Philosophical Research Society, which was founded in Los Angeles in 1934, was created to promote spiritual and philosophical studies outside of mainstream religion. And that is what he was really big into. Freemasonry is super big into getting rid of religion, but replacing it with the Luciferian philosophies that we talk about here. So in short, Hall was a bridge between ancient mystery teachings and the modern esoteric revival of the new age that we see today. So he helped popularize the pineal gland. It was a spiritual kind of enlightenment organ that has been talked about before, but he popularized it in this modern day that we're talking about today. He often called it the seat of the soul or the third eye, but he wasn't the first to mention it. Rene Descartes, who was philosophically called, or he called it the seat of the soul as well. But anyway, in the 20th century is whenever Hall kind of made it big again. And now it's, I mean, dude, you've heard of it. Everybody's heard of it, you know? So it's just a wild thing because really it's just a resurgence of the mystery religion that goes back to ancient Egypt and Babylon, but it's coming back today being reborn. And we're going to get into his pineal gland book that I have here. It's called The Pineal Gland, The Eye of God. What's funny about this, bro, is it looks like a magazine or whatever, but then you read it and it's like, I mean, it's legit.
It's got some shit in there.
Like it's filled with knowledge, just like 10 pages of it. You know what I mean? So he described the pineal gland as a dormant spiritual organ that could awaken higher perception when purified or spiritually activated. His work influenced many later New Age and esoteric writers like Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society as well. And a lot of modern like conspiracy movements really heavily talk about this stuff. And that's why I chose to kind of get into this game, was because I feel like there's not enough people kind of speaking for like, hey, maybe that's not the route either. You know what I mean? It sounds great, but maybe there's something to it that we should check out. So, hey, that's why we're here. So Hall didn't invent the idea of the pineal gland kind of being what it is, but he definitely gave it the reputation that it kind of has today and made it a central Western esoteric kind of theme with enlightenment. So let's get into this. Yeah, the ancient Egyptian carvings, it does talk about that, how, they talked about in Egypt, the Eye of Horus looks just like the pineal gland, which is inside of your brain, right? Maybe you could see it. That's it right there, right? So
Okay.
the Eye of Horus just kind of is supposed to represent that. That's kind of something that people have talked about. Could be. I think so. But that would mean that the Eye of Horus is symbolic, right? Because, well, we'll get into that. But yeah. So right here is kind of important. I definitely wanted to mention this. So in occultism, there's this concept that we didn't start as humans the way we are today, that we actually started as hermaphrodites, man and woman. And hey, welcome in. What up, living man? Welcome back.
Yo.
We're in here kicking it. We're starting to get into the pineal gland by Manly P. Hall, the Eye of God. And the reason why he calls it the Eye of God is because back in the day, before, whenever we were like hermaphrodites, like if you look into Greek philosophy and mythology, it talks about how man and women were combined and that they both had like one eye. But that one eye, he's arguing, is the pineal gland that we have today, that we look at as a useless organ, whenever in fact in the past it was our only eye we had because we saw on the etheric realm. And so that's back whenever we weren't quite fully physically human. So this gets into a really hairy thing. So there's a book called The Secret History of the World that talks about how there's something called the vegetative state, the mineral state, the animal state. And then, it keeps going. But it starts with the etheric state, then it goes to the vegetable state. And so they argue actually that we were vegetable at one point and then became more. So it's a whole thing. And so, but back then, we didn't have a hard skull the way we do today.
Yeah.
And they argue that as time went on, materialized more. And that's why we started building big like pyramids and things like that, like Stonehenge, to kind of reach up to the gods and try to reconnect with them. Because before we had like this hard skull, we used to be able to connect with the gods. So then they argue that that's actually what the fall was in the Garden of Eden, that the fall of man was actually us becoming more physical and tied to the physical realm and not able to interact with the other realm. And so the pineal gland is supposed to be that gateway to access it still.
Interesting. So
Isn't that
we were
wild?
supposed to be able to do that still being vegetables?
Right.
That's
No,
pretty
I mean,
impressive.
clearly, so what they mean by vegetative state is that like everything starts off in their eyes as like a plant,
No,
and then the
yeah,
plants
yeah,
evolved. The plants evolved into people somehow, and it's a whole thing. It's actually
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
That'll be another book club that we'll do with the secret history of the world. But that's definitely worth a deep dive if you're listening. Secret History of the World. It's a great book. It really tells you exactly what the occultists think as far as like what our history is. I kind of almost want to grab it. It's right above me. You know what I mean? Like I kind of want to just grab it so I can show you. I will in a minute once we get Justin talking. So the pineal gland, what I was going to get at by saying all that is, here's a quote right here. Is the occultist unreasonable then when he affirms that the beginning of life upon the planet vertebrates, see how he said this? Upon this planet vertebrates were hermaphrodites and objectively one-eyed. Is it not also more reasonable to agree with occultism that this gland actually extended through the skull, somewhat like an antenna, kind of like a unicorn? Like the unicorn's supposed to represent that coming through the skull out, that it represents the third eye, the pineal gland. People don't know the symbology behind the unicorn, dude. There you go. That's what it is. And people tie it to Jesus Christ. And the reason why is because they're trying to tie it to Christ consciousness.
Yeah.
Because if you activate your pineal gland, then you can get Christ consciousness. I don't ascribe to any of that. I think that there is like one savior, whatever. But if you do believe that, then that's exactly what they think.
Mhm.
Isn't that kind of crazy? So
Yeah.
again, I'll read that real quick. Is it not also more reasonable to agree with the occultist that this gland actually extended through the skull, somewhat like an antenna, as an organism of generalized sense perception? I mean, that's kind of crazy, dude. Man was
Imagine what
originally,
the fuck that would look like.
and here's what I was telling you earlier. Man was originally man was transparent. So the inner eye could see through the walls of the head. That's what I'm
Dope.
saying, bro. So like they literally think that we used to be transparent, right?
Sweet.
Yeah, so it's a whole thing, dude. The Freemasons are crazy. Whenever you start to get into what they actually believe, it's like, come on, bro. Y'all are nuts. So the Uraeus was the symbol of wisdom, and the pineal gland, the organ of a method of acquiring knowledge, which no longer employed, is a secret preserved by the elect. So they pretty much, for a long time, kept this a secret among the mystery schools
Mm.
that the pineal gland was the way you would activate your enlightened self.
That would look so fucking weird, dude. I want someone to draw that. A clear
Yeah,
dude with a
no.
little fucking antenna.
God damn it. All right, dude, you're gonna make me grab it. Here, you just keep talking about how weird it might look.
It would just look weird. I mean, it would be easy to draw, I guess. You just draw like an outline of a dude. Or you probably wouldn't even have to draw the dude because he's a fucking clear guy.
I got pictures in here, dude.
Okay.
We're
You
gonna
got
get deep, dude.
visual aids.
This is the esoteric knowledge that they keep from us. So, they act like they have some crazy special monopoly on knowledge. Well, we're
Yeah.
gonna find out because I bought a lot of their fucking books and I've read it, and I'm not convinced. Just being
Okay.
honest here.
So you're
So,
telling me they got a picture of this guy.
well, I'll try to find it eventually, right? But it's gonna be hard to find. But what really matters, though, I think, is the idea that what he was saying, that the pineal gland is the window into the other realm, which there might be
Yeah.
something to that. I don't think that that is wrong. I just think that they get a little weird after that, where they're like, the skulls were transparent. You know what I'm saying?
That's a
That's
little out
crazy.
there guy.
Yeah. So they kind of said that we used to look like,
A
fuck, you're not
fucked
gonna
up
be able to see it.
cyclops.
I think I might be able to find it. So pretty much, but they also said we look like a pink, kind of like a pink fountain is
Interesting.
what it kind of looked like. Uh
They had some interesting theories, guy.
Dude, there's some wild shit that went on.
A pink fountain.
Yeah, so it was kind of like, fuck, I'm gonna have a hard time finding it because nobody really probably read this fucking book or gives a shit. They're like, who cares about that particular image? But I think it's intriguing, honestly. I think that there's something to it as far as like, just even if it's just analyzing what they believe, it's like kind of worth it, you know?
Here for the
But
video version, maybe we can put it over. I'll
yeah, I couldn't even
flex
find
it
it.
in.
So it is what it is. But here it is, this book right here, The Secret History of the World by Mark Booth. It's a great book. Gives you a really big insight on what they think the history of the world looked like.
Mhm.
Because you got to remember, dude, they believe everything formed out of evolution. See? So you can't forget that part. These are
Yeah,
scientific believers. They don't believe that there was creation. So therefore, we evolved. Like instead of evolving out of, because you got to remember, this is before like fish or like the whole
sure.
idea of like fish and whatever they fucking say it is now. But back in the day, they looked at it like, oh, we just evolved out of vegetable into mineral and whatever, because they look at everything from an alchemical point of view.
Yeah. So you're telling
Yeah,
me
well,
somebody went from being a fucking carrot to a rock to a damn pink fountain or some shit?
pretty much. So the pineal gland, it is a relic bearing witness to an ancient faculty, and because it has endured through these eras of this spiritual obscuration, promises the ultimate restoration of the function to which it bears witness. In other words, they believe that maybe we can restore the power of the pineal gland.
Mm,
The special physical organ of perception in the brain is located in the aura of the pineal gland. The aura answers in vibration to any impression, but it can only be sensed and not perceived in living man. So that was H.P. Blavatsky. During the process of thought manifesting in consciousness, a constant vibration occurs in the light of this aura, and clairvoyant looking at the brain of a living man may almost count. See how crazy this sounds? This is that new age crazy shit, right? That's
yeah.
my point. They started the new age crazy shit. So then you wonder why people are like psychotic whenever they follow it, and then they end up like being like demons and shit, and they just don't. Yeah, because dude, this shit sounds good till you start getting deep into it. And then you're like, okay, this drives people nuts. That's what this is here to do.
Yeah. It
And
definitely uses terminology that would drive people insane.
it definitely does. And I'm thankful that I had some discernment to be like, fuck this. This is not right. Let's go over to the chat, and then we'll get into the secret teachings of all ages. Welcome back, Sarah Boston. Luciferian put America entire day behind Western Australia. Don't believe this time delay. Yeah, dude, it is kind of crazy that it's like Tuesday there. You know what
It
I'm
is
saying?
kind of wild to think about.
It's weird. It's you know what I mean, but yeah, that's an odd
It's
thing.
cool though. It's cool. How's
That
Tuesday?
West Coast lag is brutal. 20 past 8 a.m. this morning. Yeah, dude, you guys are awesome. Thanks for coming back. Hell yeah. We're gonna get into the secret teachings of all ages. We just broke down Manly P. Hall, the history kind of that author. There's a lot more to break down with him, but it's fine. We're gonna get into Atlantis, baby. Let's go.
Atlantis.
The gods of antiquity, right? That's what the fuck we came for, dude.
Aquaman.
Atlantis and the gods of antiquity. And we're going to get into a really crazy, like, modern day thing with this. So keep in mind some of the stuff I talk about, because we're going to be talking about Donald Trump and Plus Ultra and what that means. And it's going to all matter here in a little bit. So we'll go through the story of Atlantis. Pretty much right here, he's just kind of talking about how in the past few years, people have been trying to study Atlantis. There's been a resurgence in people looking into it. This is in the 1900s, 1912. And let me get to it. So, all right, this is how the story goes. The description of Atlantean civilization given by Plato may be summarized as follows. So this is the story of Atlantis. In the first ages, the gods divided the earth among themselves, proportioning it according to their respective dignities. Each became the peculiar deity of its own allotment and established therein temples to himself, ordained a priestcraft, and instituted a system of sacrifice. So remember the pagan gods, the multiple gods, the fallen angels,
Yeah.
and they all demand sacrifice. This is what this is right here. Hey, welcome from Dallas, Liz Williams. Hell yeah, dude. We're getting into the story of Atlantis. You came just in time for
Hell yeah.
the good shit. It's going to be a deep dive, so buckle up. So each deity had a land allotment to itself and created temples to himself, ordained a priestcraft, and then instituted a system of sacrifice. We see that all through, history, as far as like all the pagan gods and the sacrifices that went on in history.
Yeah.
Poseidon was given the sea and the island continent of Atlantis. In the midst of the island was a mountain, which was the dwelling place of the three earth-born primitive beings. Now, by the way, remember how we talked about the earth god? I mean, the water god is who the smiley face killers in the Order of the Nine Angles seem to like kind of kill people in tribute to, and then put them in the water, in the river.
Yeah.
Because they worship a water god. Well, the water god, Poseidon, was the god of Atlantis. You see what I'm saying? So they're trying to bring back Atlantis. That's my point. So they're trying to manifest what's hidden. Well, what's hidden? The old history story, the old system of Atlantis.
Yeah.
Pretty nuts. Pretty nuts. In the midst of the island was a mountain, which was dwelling place of the three earth-born primitive beings. So we're going to skip past this. It just kind of gets into who the beings were. This essentially is just like the story of the Anunnaki, Enki, Enlil, the whole idea of these gods, all that shit.
Yeah.
So the maiden was very beautiful, and after the sudden death of her parents, she was wooed by Poseidon, who begat by her 5 pairs of male children. Poseidon, so it just gets into their kids. Atlas, the eldest, he made overlord of the other 9. Remember Atlas? Poseidon further called the country Atlantis and the surrounding sea the Atlantic in honor of Atlas. Before the birth of his 10 sons, Poseidon divided the continent and the coastwise into the centric zones of land and water, which were as perfect as though turned upon a lathe. 2 zones of land and 3 of water surrounded the central island, which Poseidon caused to be irrigated with 2 springs of water, one warm and the other cold. The descendants of Atlas continued as rulers of Atlantis, and with wise government and industry, elevated the country to a position of surpassing dignity. The natural resources of Atlantis were apparently limitless. Precious metals, they were mined while wild animals were domesticated and perfumes were distilled from its fragrant flowers. While enjoying the abundant natural to their semi-tropic location, the Atlanteans employed themselves also in the erection of palaces, temples, and docks. They bridged the zones of sea and later dug a deep canal to. So, in other words, they were seafaring, they were traveling the world. This became a one world system of government and kind of, I mean, yeah, they had clearly they were doing trading of fishing and all the whole deal.
Right.
Plato then describes the white, black, and red stones. What are the colors of Freemasonry?
Mm-hmm.
White, black, and red. What are the colors of the Nazis? White, black, and red. We could go through a couple more. What are the colors of the Soviet Union?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So but whatever, I'll stop there. But yeah, so it just, dude, it's wild, bro. So they circumscribed each of the land zones with a wall, the outer wall being covered with brass, the middle with tin, and the inner with encompassed with the citadel. The citadel was the central island contained. So it's just describing how the land kind of was. There's 3 rings that lead into the central landmass, which was the Atlantis. Yep, the KKK colors. Yep, there it is. Hell yeah, dude. Right on, Equilibrium.
There it is.
Hell yeah. Tesla Odin coil machine that, hold on. So homie's got, Jord has a, welcome, Jord. We'll go to the comments quick. Has a Tesla Odin coil machine that has a helmet coil, creates the electric plasma field around your head. Doesn't that? Whoa.
Whoa,
Maybe
dude.
that. Okay, that's some wild shit. That reminds me of the dude that like does DMT and then looks into a laser.
That is some wild shit.
And then he sees like some wild sigils.
Holy fuck.
KKK does equal 33. Yeah. Smart man. Smart man. That's what I'm talking about. That's the depth we need in here. You should interview FE Dave about it. Yeah, I definitely would love to. Definitely email us 60agenda at 60agendapod@gmail. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Okay, let's get back to it. The Citadel. In the center, surrounded by a wall of gold, was the sanctuary dedicated to Cleito and Poseidon. The first 10 princes of the island were born, and here each year their descendants brought offerings. Poseidon's own temple, its exterior entirely covered with silver and its pinnacles with gold, also stood within the citadel. The interior of the temple was of ivory, gold, silver, and orichalc. That's some shit I never even heard of.
Orichalc?
Orichalc.
Okay.
The temple contained a colossal statue of Poseidon standing in a chariot. Great. So let's get to what the fuck this society was like. The part of Atlantis facing the sea. Okay, the 10 governments differed from each other. Other in details concerning military requirements. Each of the kings of Atlantis had complete control over his own kingdom. But their mutual relationships were governed by a code engraved by the first 10 kings on a column in the temple of Poseidon. An alternate, wait, this is crazy. Okay, here with appropriate sacrifice, each king renewed his oath of loyalty upon the sacred inscription. Here also, so pretty much they just do a lot of fucking Freemasonic ritual shit. That's what's going on. The chief laws of the Atlantean kings were that they should not take up arms against each other and that they should come to assistance to any of their number who was attacked. That is what Freemasons vow to do for each other as well. So that's pretty wild. No kings had the power of life and death over his kingsmen without the assent of the majority of the 10. So they had to vote to kill a motherfucker.
Damn.
Plato concludes his description by declaring that it was the great empire which attacked the Hellenic states, but this did not occur, however, until their power and glory had lured the Atlantean kings from the pathway of wisdom and virtue. Filled with false ambition, the rulers of Atlantis determined to conquer the entire world. Zeus, perceiving the wickedness of the Atlanteans, gathered the gods into the holy habitation and addressed them. Now, is Atlantis like one place? Or is it like the whole world? And then they're describing Zeus doing that, but that's really like divine providence coming in and stepping in, like God comes in and stops it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because, you know, That's where shit gets weird, where it's like, it's hard to tell. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And also they're very Greek style. They're very Greek. This is where all the mythology comes from.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find where he talks about the Straits of Gibraltar, because that's really worth talking about as well. A careful consideration of Plato's description of Atlantis, it is evident that the story should not be regarded as a wholly historical, but rather as both allegorical and historical. So this is where the depth of the story of Atlantis comes into play, where he gets into the symbology behind Atlantis. Plato's Atlantis symbolizes the threefold nature of both the universe and the human body. The 10 kings of Atlantis are the Tetractys. Do you guys know what the Tetractys is? I think it would be worth bringing it up.
Yeah,
So remember in the first episodes, I talked about Pythagoras and how Pythagoras was in the mystery schools.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about how, like, that's math. It's literally math. So, like, even our math goes back to mystery school shit.
Yeah.
So look at this.
Oh,
this
shit.
This is
like that fucking peg game at Cracker Barrel, dude.
Exactly. The peg game. And then look in the center. What is that? That's a hexagram.
Mm-hmm.
And then look in the center of that. That's the nuclear symbol.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, and then also the Zelda game. Same thing. So my point is, it's everywhere. But Pythagoras talked about this Tetractys as being the number that represents the universe, essentially. So it's a very powerful. 10 is a powerful number. So we can even get into the symbology behind 10. What is the letter X in Roman numerals? Elon Musk, right? 10, right?
10.
And then if you remember that book that predicted, Werner von Braun wrote a book that talked about Elon taking us to Mars. And he said that it would be ruled by a league of 10. So again, with the 10, right?
Yeah.
So 10 is a very important number when it comes to this group of people. When we're talking about the mystery schools, it's important.
Yeah.
So look at this.
Yeah, we've pulled that picture up before.
That's gang. That's gang right there. I'm just kidding. Exactly. X is Roman numeral for 10, and that's what I was talking about. That's why Elon with X, and then it talks about Elon bringing us to Mars with the League of 10 that will rule over Mars. It's very funny because his, parents started the whole technocratic political movement in Canada.
Yeah.
Very wild.
It'll be a panel of 10 fucking weird
His grandparents.
weirdos.
Yeah, his grandparents, not parents. Okay, so let's get to the 10 kings of Atlantis. The number 1 to 10 rule every creature, and the numbers in turn are under the control of the monad, or the one, the eldest among them. So 1 represents a very important number, the monad, which is why 11 is very important as well. The 2 pillars, right? The 2 pillars in Freemasonry would be like 2 ones, 2 phallus, right? That's why whenever you see the Washington Monument, it's the same as what you would see outside of Egypt. That is the phallus of Osiris, also represented by the number 1. Very crazy. So this is like for that one, we had somebody that wanted us to get into symbology. This is symbology right here. This is how it works. 1 and 0 binary. That's exactly right. Either the initiated Plato used the Atlantis allegory to achieve 2 widely different ends, or the same, or else the accounts preserved by the Egyptian priest were tampered with to perpetuate the secret doctrine. So what is the secret doctrine? Oh, okay. With the trident scepter of Poseidon, these kings held sway over the inhabitants of the 7 small and 3 great islands comprising Atlantis. Philosophically, the 10 islands symbolize the triune powers of the superior deity and the 7 regents who bow before his eternal throne. If Atlantis is to be considered as the archetypal sphere, then its immersion signifies the descent of rational, organized consciousness into illusionary. here's what he's getting at here. He's saying that this is the fall of like into Eden, the
Mm,
fall of man into Eden. So with that in mind, this is Genesis, what he believes Genesis is. If Atlantis be considered as the archetypal sphere, then its immersion signifies the descent of rational organized consciousness into the illusionary impermanent realm of irrational mortal ignorance.
hmm,
So in other words, the sinking of Atlantis and the biblical story of the fall of man signify spiritual involution, prerequisite to conscious evolution. So he believes that we had to fall in consciousness so that way we could all rise in consciousness on this conscious kind of ascension. Pretty
okay.
crazy. That's some
Yeah.
wild shit, dude.
That is some wild shit.
That's why I like reading this shit because it's like some of it's kind of like, all right, dude, I see it. But it's like, I just don't let myself get too deep because I understand that the devil's in the details.
Mm,
So what he's saying is that either the initiated Plato used this Atlantis allegory to achieve two widely different ends, or the account preserved by the Egyptian priests were tampered with to perpetuate the secret doctrine. This does not mean to imply that Atlantis is purely mythological, but it overcomes the most serious obstacle to acceptance of the Atlantis theory, namely the fantastic accounts of its origin, size, appearance, and date of destruction. So he's saying that it must be allegorical. I think that it represents a one world like civilization of whatever, but
yeah.
whatever. The city of the Golden Gates, the capital of Atlantis, is the one now preserved among numerous religions of the city of the gods or the holy city, the archetype of the new Jerusalem.
Mm,
With its street paved in gold and its 12 gates shining with precious stones, the history of Atlantis is the key of the Greek mythology. There can be no question that these gods of Greece were human beings. The tendency to attach divine attributes to great earthly rulers is one deeply implanted in human nature. So, again, they believe it was an allegory, and that now here's what I'm getting at because I believe them when it comes to this.
okay.
Atlantis is an allegory for a one world civilization. When it talks about water taking over Atlantis, it's talking about the mind, the consciousness of man. In other words, the mob of the people that live there went crazy. They call it the mob, and they say that they're against three things: the church, the state, and the mob, right? So when you think about that, the mob are the people that they have to keep subordinate to them. The burst of, or the beating of, I can't say it, the beast of useful burden, like we always talk about, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm pointing out is that in Freemasonry, they believe that they kind of are meant to rule over man because they used to rule over man when the 10 kings ruled over man back in the day, just like the 10 kings are supposed to rule in Mars. It's all just trying to repeat itself. They're trying to repeat and bring
Yeah.
Atlantis back. That's what I'm trying to point out. In this one world technocratic society that we talk about, that's where I see it coming to fruition at. That's why
Mm,
we're talking about it. Fuck yeah. Let's go to the chat.
fuck yeah.
AI is going to wipe us. Elon is going to escape. Yeah, right. He ain't going nowhere, that motherfucker. He's going down to a down to that fucking tunnel that they made. The boring tunnels that probably I know they actually didn't make them, but
Every time I see him online, I'm more and more convinced he's a supervillain. He's getting his evil
yeah.
laugh down perfect.
Yeah. All right, so this is what he's saying right here. And remember, dude, this is what they talk about on Joe Rogan and shit like that all the time. The
Mm,
Garden of Eden, from which humanity was driven by a flaming sword, is perhaps an allusion to the earthly paradise supposedly located west of the Pillars of Hercules and destroyed by a volcanic cataclysm. The deluge legend may trace also to the Atlantean inundation during which a world was destroyed by water. Dude, dude, Elon the other day on Rogan, we're gonna talk about that cake in
it
a cup.
was
Not
weird.
today, but yeah, we're gonna. I didn't even have to watch the whole thing. I just saw like some clips and I was like, dude, this motherfucker. He says things. Yeah, whatever. We're gonna get into it on a chill pod another day. It's so crazy though, because yeah, that motherfucker. They always what it is that show is the Overton window, and they get people used to talking about things, so that way they can start to lay shit out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Later. So it's like, let's talk about Atlantis before anybody really talks about it. And this idea of the Younger Dryas impact theory and this idea of the ancient civilization that was advanced. So that way later we can make it make sense whenever the disclosure happens. And then we find out that we were seeded by aliens and all this shit, right? So they're trying to move the Overton window to get people, that predictive programming is in place on his show very heavily. And so with Elon, when he talks about AI and what's coming with that, I think that is what getting people used to the Overton window, the idea of you won't have a cell phone, it'll all be inside of you. Remember he said that? That was a big part of it. And also where he talks about how AI can't be trained to be. So in other words, we can't regulate AI. Remember Peter Thiel said that you're anti-Christ if you try to regulate AI? Well, Elon's arguing the same thing in a different way by saying if we don't regulate it by keeping it from lying was his argument, which who's going to argue with that? Of course, I don't want it to fucking lie when I'm researching, right?
Yeah.
But the reality of what he's really saying is we can't regulate AI. And if you don't regulate it, then what are we doing? That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, appreciate you living, man. That's kind of what I got for you there. I haven't really watched the whole thing. I'll watch the whole thing and we'll do a nice little good segment on a chill pod coming up. But it's the Overton window, man. That's really the main gist of it. So we're going to get into some deep shit. I have some underlined pages now coming up. We laid down a little bit of the basis of what Atlantis was.
All right.
But here we go, dude. This is the core of it. Atlantean sun worship has been perpetuated in the ritualism and ceremonialism of both Christianity and pagandom. There we go, dude.
Pagandom.
Yeah, pagans. Both the cross and the serpent were Atlantean emblems of divine wisdom. The divine Atlantean progenitors of the Mayas of the Central America coexisted with the green and the azure radiance of the Gukamats, the plumed serpent, Quetzalcoatl. The 6 sky-born sages came into manifestation as centers of light bound together or synthesized by the 7th and chief of their order, the feathered snake. In other words, Abraxas. Who is this feathered serpent? It's Abraxas. That's the chicken snake god, right?
Yeah.
And that's who they're talking about here, which he's saying right here he said that they were connected. The Atlantean culture was connected with the South American culture. He proves it right there and talks about how these pagan gods are all over the world, and it's because of a one world religion. And it was all sun worship. Pretty crazy. The title of the winged or plumed snake was applied to Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan, and the Central American initiate. The center of the Atlantean wisdom religion was presumably a great pyramidal temple standing on a brow of a plateau rising in the midst of the city of the Golden Gates. So if you ever ask me, what are these pyramids? What are these mounds? They're initiation temples.
Interesting.
For these rites, for this right here.
Okay.
That Atlantis thought as wild. Never. Yeah, pretty nuts. That's what we do here, boy. I've been trying to figure this shit out for years. It's time to talk about it. And I hate that I'm reading this, but it's like it's deep shit in here, so it's like you kind of have to. The mythologies of many nations contain accounts of the gods who came out of the sea. Now, a lot of people may have heard this if they go read into like the Mayan shit, right? Like if you remember seeing that movie, what's that Mel Gibson movie? Apocalypto?
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I think that's
Apocalypto describes exactly what we're talking about. So in the beginning, actually in the very end, people come, those Spaniards come, and they think that those are like gods that came back to like help them or whatever.
Mm.
And then they were mistaken and they were killed and slaughtered by all these Spaniards. Well, the reason why they thought that those were gods isn't because they're stupid. It's because they had a story that the gods who came out of the water taught them. Certain shamans among the American Indians tell of holy men dressed in bird feathers who rose out of the blue waters and instructed them on the arts and crafts. So they thought, these are the people that came and brought us our knowledge and our religion and everything we do, right? The people from Atlantis. No, they're not the people from Atlantis. This is like 1,000 years later. and you have like Spaniards rolling up or whoever, and they just slaughtered them. So
Damn, that's so fucked.
yeah, that's really what happened there.
You're
So
like,
at the very
oh,
end of
the
that,
gods, our gods, and then
yeah,
just
they're
fucking
back.
get fucked.
Well, because they said that they would come back too if you go read their
Yeah.
stories. And the Hopi Indians, remember we talked about the Hopi Indians and how they were given tablets by the gods and that they said they'd come back? Same thing, dude.
Mhm.
So among the legends of the Chaldeans is that of the Oans, a partly amphibious creature who came out of the sea and taught the savage people among the shore to read and write, till the soil, and cultivate herbs for healing, study the stars, and establish rational forms of government. So these people got taught by some things that came out of the water. They're like, these are some amphibious fucking creatures.
Mhm.
So among the Mayas, Quetzalcoatl, the savior god, issued from the waters after instructing the people in the essentials of the civilization, rowed out to the sea on a magic raft of serpents to escape the wrath of the fierce god of the fiery mirror. So I guess there was some other god that was coming to get him. I can't even say this word. Tezcatlipoca.
Good
It's really
effort.
hard to pronounce a word when it has ZC. How do you do ZC?
Uh, isn't that like a C sound or like a
Yeah, it's like test.
or
I don't even know.
like isn't that how like check CH
Yeah, like
like a
check.
ch?
That's easier. That was
Yeah,
easier. Yeah.
yeah.
The same story as Sumeria. Yeah, it's the same story as Sumeria, the Anunnaki. If you go look at fucking, there's a lot of different. It's weird. They all permeate everywhere, but mostly the South American stories. Yes, it's exactly the same. Very nuts. May it not have been that these demigods of a fabulous age, who Esdras like came out of the sea, were Atlantean priests? So that's what he's arguing. He's saying, could it be that these were Atlantean priests that came out of the sea and taught these primitive men? They remember the glory of their golden ornaments and the transcendency of their wisdom and the sanctity of their symbols, the cross and the serpent. They came in ships was soon forgotten, for untutored minds considered even boats as supernatural. Wherever the Atlanteans, so he's trying to argue that these people were too dumb to understand they came on a boat. So he's just so he can argue that these are just regular people. And by the way, maybe, but I don't know, man.
Maybe, but
That's
like,
that way of like copping out a little bit.
yeah, seems a little too easy.
But wherever the Atlanteans came, they erected pyramids and temples patterned after the great sanctuary in the city of the Golden Gates.
Mm,
So it is odd that they chose to do that. So somebody taught them something.
yeah.
Such is the origin of the pyramids of Egypt, Mexico, and Central America, the mounds in Normandy and Britain, as well as those of the American Indians and the remnants of a similar culture. So this is what I'm saying. One world, mound, pyramid, religion, like, initiation ceremonies and unfortunately sacrifice going
Yeah.
on to these pagan gods. So in the midst of the Atlantean program of world colonization and conversion, the cataclysms which sank Atlantis began. What did he just say there? This proves what we're talking about. In the midst of the Atlantean program of world colonization and conversion, the cataclysms which sank Atlantis began. That's pretty crazy, dude. So they were on a one world government kind of march, and they were
Yeah.
getting there, and maybe even they probably got pretty damn close, because and then after that they spread around when the cataclysms came even more.
Sure.
And so that's why I feel like you see broken versions of it everywhere. H.P. Blavatsky sums up the causes which precipitated the Atlantean disaster as this: under the evil insinuations of their demon, Thevatet, the Atlantis race began a nation of wicked magicians. So even these people that I believe are kind of sus, argue that wicked magicians are the reason for their downfall.
Okay.
Isn't that kind of weird? So
Yeah.
these magicians are arguing that wicked magicians did it. But what about you? So I'm supposed to believe that what you do is good?
That motherfucker over there is wicked. I'm not though. Trust
Right.
me.
That's kind
Trust
of
me.
how I look
I'm
at
not.
that.
He is
I
though.
can't. Yeah. There's deception here. In consequence of this, war was declared, the story of which would be too long to narrate. Good. Its substance may be found in the disfigured allegories of the race of Cain, the giants, and that of Noah and his righteous family. Holy shit, dude. Did she just connect Noah, Cain, and all that in the family oh, okay. So she's arguing that there was a demon that came down and enacted wickedness with magicians in Atlantis, and that these people, this is kind of like the whole idea with the fallen angels and the Nephilim
Mm-hmm.
being created, where they mated with man and everything. She's arguing that these were demons that were separate from them. And again, I think that it's all the same. The conflict came to an end by the submersion of the Atlantis, which finds its imitation in the stories of Babylonian and Mosaic floods, like the Noah's Ark flood. So
Yeah.
again, yes, this ties in with the Nephilim. Wow. So Atlantis was where the Nephilim were. There was a one world government during the time of the Nephilim where they were creating pyramids. So the Nephilim did have something to do with the creation of the pyramids, as we talked about in other shows.
Yeah.
Holy shit. The giants and magicians and every man, all except Noah and Xisthurus, who were substantially identical with the Great Father in the Popol Vuh, or the sacred book of the Guatemalans, which also tells of the escaping in a large boat like the Hindu Noah. So they're saying that the story of Noah is everywhere. Again, dude,
Interesting.
I think that the story of Noah is everywhere because like he's like the only Nephilim
Yeah.
left, and then that bloodline somewhere out there. So from the Atlanteans, the world has received not only the heritage of arts and crafts and philosophies and science, ethics and religion, but also the heritage of hate, strife, and perversion, endless wars, things like that.
Yeah.
The Atlanteans instigated the first war, and it has been said that all subsequent wars were fought in a fruitless effort to justify the first one and to right the wrong which it caused, which means that before Atlantis sank, its spiritually illumined initiates who realized that their land was doomed because it had departed from the path of the light withdrew, and then this is how it spread across the world. And carrying with them the sacred and secret doctrine, they established themselves in Egypt, where they came the first divine rulers. Nearly all, so this is how we get Egypt and the great divine, like ruling gods, because they go there and they teach them all the shit from Atlantis. And if you go look in Egyptian, philosophy, it talks about how people came and taught us this stuff.
Yeah.
We were taught how to do this, just like they were taught how to do it in South America. Who's teaching them though, right? That's the crazy part.
These motherfuckers from the water.
Yeah. We got little reactions. We evolve alchemically from primordial slime. Exactly. Yeah, she's back there in the beginning. She'll get there. Hell yeah. Holy shit's is right, dude. There's some wild shit in it. I remember, dude, imagine being by yourself reading this by yourself, dude. That's what I'm saying. I had to
Yeah.
fucking I've just read so much. I'm like, I got to talk about this shit. I mean, I'm still on my learning journey. This is just a journey of learning for me.
Oh, yeah, I'm fucking at the very beginning, guys.
Now, I know you got to leave. We're going
Yeah.
to, but I'm going to keep going a little bit.
Sure.
Because the myth of the dying god is kind of important.
Yeah.
I think one, because they're trying to say that Jesus is not special, and I think that's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to get into like what they say about that too, because that goes
Yeah.
all the way back to Atlantis apparently.
All right.
So yeah, we're gonna get into that as well. So wait, real quick, you know what Drake's son's name is?
No.
Adonis.
Oh, yeah, that motherfucker.
The name Adonis or Adonai means Lord and was a designated applied to the sun and later borrowed by the Jews as the esoteric name of their god.
What
That's
the
where
fuck?
Adonis comes. Dude, I got you, bro. I know, dude, I got the fucking receipts, bro. It's actually crazy. Smyrna, the mother of Adonis, was turned into a tree by the gods. After a time, the bark burst open and the infant savior came forth. So their savior came out of a tree, kind of like Nimrod. That's
Like
what we're
fucking
kind of talking about here. Tammuz, Nimrod. So yeah, we're gonna
fucking
get into
Groot.
that, dude. Yeah, dude. The fucking. So what I'm saying is that they're trying to turn Jesus' story into the same as Nimrod's, which is why we celebrate Christmas the way we do with the
Yeah.
evergreen tree. That's why the evergreen tree, because whenever Nimrod dies, his mother like a tree grew out of where he died or something, like a whole thing, dude. Like everything we worship goes back to the Babylonian Atlantean fucking shit.
Damn.
Imagine that 10,000 years and we're still worshiping it or like practicing the same things.
People fucking worshiping little baby Groots.
I know.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well,
All right,
according
dog.
to yeah, I'll see you later, dude. Hey,
Yeah, I think I'm
Justin's
gonna
gonna
take
head out of
off.
here.
Got a date with the
He's got a
lady.
hot date.
All
Fuck yeah.
right. Peace.
Hell yeah, I'll see you later. Adonis spelling was a muscle bound god or something. No, yeah, no. According to Manly P. Hall, Adonis is the name for Lord, which was taken by the Jews later, and used as their Lord. Its name. Very crazy. So the myth of the dying god. This is some crazy shit right here, dude, because this gets into what I always try to hammer at, which is the two Babylons. And nobody really talks about that. The book, The Two Babylons, breaks down how the Babylonian worship of the pagan gods later became Catholicism, essentially. And in between then, you had Jesus' story, but it was hijacked by the Catholics and then the Babylonians, which would be what we're reading about, the Freemasons, the people who worship Atlantis, the idea of all that. They were at war with the Catholics, even though essentially they were kind of coming from the same thing, like doing the same shit. It's kind of weird. So again, the two Babylons, where it's kind of like this idea of nonlinear warfare, where you get people to fight over two lies, and neither of them have the truth, but they both fight because they both believe that they're true. That's genius. And that's the type of shit that I think that they do with the religions. I think that it's very smart. You know, they fucked with every religion. So the truth is in there, but not fully. Very crazy. So the myth of Tammuz and Ishtar is one of the earliest examples of the dying god allegory, probably antedated around 4000 BC. The imperfect condition of the tablets upon which the legends are inscribed makes it impossible to secure more than a fragmentary account of Tammuz rites. So even he admits that there's not much to go off of with the story of Tammuz. Yet they still argue that Jesus' story is not unique because there's been many like it, but we can't read the whole thing. Come on, dude. Being the esoteric god of the sun, Tammuz did not occupy a position among the first deities venerated by the Babylonians, who, for lack of deeper knowledge, looked upon him as a god of agriculture or vegetation spirit. Originally, he was described as being one of the guardians of the gates of the underworld. Like many of the savior gods, he is referred to as the shepherd, or the Lord, or the shepherd of the seat. Tammuz occupies the remarkable position of the son and husband of Ishtar, who is the fertility goddess, right? Easter, Ishtar. So again, even we celebrate Christ during Christmas, and then we pretty much celebrate Nimrod with the evergreen tree. And then what do we do during Easter? We celebrate Jesus, but not because it's really about Ishtar. All about the Babylonian gods, even when you think that you're actually, that's why I just can't get down with Christianity 100% because they are 100% pagan, dude, whenever it comes to their holidays. Tammuz occupies the remarkable position of the son and husband of Ishtar, Easter, the Babylonian and Assyrian mother goddess Ishtar, to whom the planet Venus was sacred. Venus is another planet that represents Lucifer, Lilith. Also, you have Mercury, which is Hermes, and in some pantheons also represents, I believe, the messenger, aka Prometheus or Lucifer. The most widely venerated deity of the Babylonian and Assyrian pantheon. She was probably identical with Astarte, Aphrodite. So this is Aphrodite we're talking about. The story of her descent into the underworld in search for presumably the sacred elixir, which would restore Tammuz's life, is the key to the ritual of her mysteries. So there's a lot of times, like when you look into Freemasonry, they do a lot of initiation rituals and ceremonies. These rituals and ceremonies are based off of these stories that we're reading right here. The story of her descent into the underworld, where she gets this sacred elixir, which she could restore Tammuz's life. They do something similar to that that would represent that going to the underworld and coming back. Kind of gets into the beginning where we talked about the pant leg and how they raise the pant leg. They have a noose around their neck and they're blindfolded. This is because that's how you would have to be if you were going to the gallows, and they're being born again. It's kind of like H.W. Bush when he says, they said, "Are you Christian?" He says, "If you're asking if I've been born again, the answer is yes." Well, that's his way of not telling you that he's been initiated and he's been born again through this death and rebirth ceremony that they do within Freemasonry. So pretty nuts, if you ask me. The story for descent, Tammuz whose annual festival took place just before the summer solstice, died in the midsummer in the ancient month, which bore his name. Now, Sirius, the god, the star Sirius, they call it the dog days during August, which is during the time that we kind of talked about this a little bit, but during the time like Son of Sam, he did a lot of murders. It was in the midsummer, and he said that he had a dog that was telling him to do it. Kind of like the dog star Sirius, which connects to Tammuz, which, like it says here, Tammuz, whose annual festival took place before the summer solstice. It dies in the midsummer. Midsummer, it dies, and in the ancient month which bore his name. So again, that connects right into the Son of Sam. These are satanic rituals. Very crazy. The manner of his death is unknown, but some of the accusations made by Ishtar, by Nimrod, who would indicate that she indirectly at least had contributed to his demise. The resurrection of Tammuz was the occasion of great rejoicing, at which time was hailed as a redeemer of his people. So this is the story of Jesus, but adulterated. With outspread wings, Ishtar, the daughter of Sin, look at that, they even admit it. Ishtar, the daughter of Sin, the moon, sweeps downward to the gates of death. The house of darkness, the dwelling of the god Urkala, is described as the place of no return. It is without light. The nourishment of those who dwell therein is dust, and their food is mud. So the myth of Ishtar symbolizes the descent of the human spirit through the seven worlds, or the seven spheres, of the sacred planet, until finally, deprived of its spiritual adornments, it incarnates into the physical body, where the mistress of that body heaps every form of sorrow and misery upon the imprisoned consciousness. The waters of life, the secret doctrine, cure the diseases of the ignorance. So the secret doctrine, which is what Helena Blavatsky writes a lot about, is the waters of life. The waters of life is enlightened consciousness. It is the cure of the disease of ignorance. And the spirit, ascending again to its divine source, regains its God-given adornments as it passes upwards through the rings of the planets. This gets into the Gnostic idea of how you have to pass through the rings of the planets so that way you could be enlightened. This is what we talk about a lot here on the show. So this lays a lot of context down to that. Hell yeah. How you guys feeling? Another mystery ritual among the Babylonians and Assyrians was that of Merodach and the dragon. Merodach, the creator of the inferior universe, slays a horrible monster, and out of her body forms the universe. Here is the probable source of the so-called Christian allegory of St. George and the dragon. So St. George and the dragon comes from a mystery ritual where the Babylonians and Assyrians practiced it, where the creator of the inferior universe slays a horrible monster, and out of the body of the monster forms the universe. So the mysteries of Adonis, or Adonai, were celebrated annually in many parts of Egypt. The name Adonis, or Adonai, means Lord, and was a designation applied to the sun, and later borrowed by the Jews as the esoteric name of their god. Exoteric name of their god, which is important. That's the outward name. Mother of Adonis was turned into a tree by the gods. And after a time, the bark burst open and her infant savior came forth. According to one account, he was liberated by a wild boar which split the wood of maternal tree and its husk. It's funny with the wild boar, because I think the wild boar like kills one of the gods, and that reminds me of Game of Thrones, where you have that king, right? In Game of Thrones, in the beginning, he goes boar hunting and he gets killed by it. Adonis was born. This is important here. This is what I mean by we are not worshiping, like we're not practicing the right shit on the right days. Watch this. Adonis was born at the midnight of the 24th of December. Through his unhappy death, a mystery rite was established that wrought the salvation of his people. In the Jewish month of Tammuz, another name for this deity, he was gored to death by a boar sent by the god Ares. Yeah, this is what I was talking about a minute ago. Adonis was gored to death by a boar that was sent by the god Ares in the Jewish month of Tammuz, which is August. And what's funny about that is Adonis is the savior in this Assyrian mythology, which is like Jesus. What they're trying to say is Jesus. He dies, or he was born on the 24th of December, which is when we say Jesus was born, whenever in reality, a lot of historical accounts say that he was actually born in March. And so, again, why would we celebrate Jesus' birthday in December if it's in March? Oh, because it's a pagan holiday when the sun dies and then is resurrected 3 days later. I see. That's really what it has to do with. It is written that women were weeping for Tammuz at the north gate of the Lord's house in Jerusalem. Jesus had wept, the lover of Venus was bewailed. He tells us that Bethlehem, the traditionary birthplace of the Lord, was shaded by a grove of still older Syrian lord Adonis, and that where the infant Jesus had wept, the lover of Venus had bewailed. Oh, that's somebody trying to besmirch Jesus' story is what it is. Adonis was originally an androgynous deity who represented the solar power, which the winter was destroyed by the evil principle of cold. The 3-day months in the tomb, Adonis rose triumphant on the 25th day of March. Amidst the acclamation of his priests and followers, he is risen. Adonis was born out of a myrrh tree. Myrrh, the symbol of death because of its connection with the process of embalming, was one of the gifts brought by the 3 magi to the manger of Jesus. So myrrh traces to, so there might be something there. I'm not going to lie. In the mysteries of Adonis, the neophyte passed through the symbolic death of the god and raised by the priests, entered into the blessed state of redemption, made possible by the sufferings of Adonis. Nearly all authors believe Adonis to have been originally a vegetation god, directly connected with the growth and maturing of flowers and fruits. It's so wild. So it always just has to do with some kind of always comes down to some kind of earthly worship of we good? Check, check. I think my mic went out for a minute. My apologies. I hope that wasn't long. I apologize. Yeah, so are we good? Comment if we're good. I was just reading about Adonis and how pretty much they're just taking that story. He was killed by a boar, and it's very much like Game of Thrones with that that king that gets killed by a boar when he goes boar hunting. That's hilarious. We're gonna move on from that. I did want to point out this plus ultra stuff. So we were talking about Atlantis. I'm gonna kind of segue back to Atlantis. Um, so this is very. What's up? What's up, Jeremy? How you doing, man? Coming through. Hell yeah. So we're gonna get into this kind of crazy shit. We talked about Atlantis. Plato says that whenever you enter into Atlantis, you have to pass through the pillars of Hercules, through the Straits of Gibraltar. And what I think is really funny is that when you look up plus ultra is a Latin phrase, a reversal of the original phrase, nothing further beyond. This phrase, nothing further beyond, was said to have been inscribed as a warning on the pillars of Hercules at the Straits of Gibraltar, which is leading into Atlantis. It says nothing further beyond. Well, they inverted that and it became plus ultra. Well, wouldn't you know it that Trump at Mar-a-Lago has plus ultra in between two pillars, like the pillars for the Hercules Straits of Gibraltar pillars, with plus ultra in the center, which means that Trump, I think his family goes back to the Atlantean families of the king gods. I think that's how deep this shit goes. So we read about Atlantis this whole time, so you guys know what that means as far as that goes. So let's look at what plus ultra was and what it is. French for further beyond was adopted by the Duke of Burgundy and new king of Spain, Charles Hadsburg. Wow, Hadsburg is an important name. We're gonna have to talk to Ben from End of the World News. He knows. I know he's brought up the Hadsburgs. It was emblematic Christian empire spanning beyond the boundaries of the old world. Now that Charles also controlled territories of the new world through Spanish crown. But it had a lot to do with banking. That's kind of what I was going to get at. The banking cabal that we know goes back to Babylon. That is plus ultra. I know for a fact. Okay, whatever. It's not going to let us, and that's okay. But either way, what matters is in between two pillars, plus ultra is written, inscribed in Mar-a-Lago. Very weird. Because outside of Atlantis was the inversion of that inscription, which means he probably comes from the Atlantean bloodline, which is absolutely nuts whenever you think about it. Which makes sense why there's so many weird things around him. I feel like, he's got it's a mythical family he comes from almost. He's a mythical person. As much as you may want to hate the guy, I mean, there's something to it, especially when you think about the Babylon workings and how he was born 3 months after the Babylon workings were done with Jack Parsons. And he was born on a eclipse, a blood moon eclipse. That's absolutely crazy. So I want to get past the dying god thing. I guess that was it there. All right, cool. So we got through Atlantis. I think on the next week on Monday, we're going to get into my favorite, ancient mysteries and secret societies. So we're going to learn all about the ancient mysteries and secret societies next week. I'm going to give you a little tidbit. Thoughtlessness is almost synonymous, I can't talk tonight, with childlessness, while thoughtfulness is symbolic of maturity. However, few mature minds are in the world, and thus it was the philosophic religious doctrines of the pagans were divided to meet the needs of those two fundamental groups of human intellect. One exoteric and one esoteric interpretation must be created because of people that don't know how to use their intelligence. Very crazy. So we're going to get deep into the fact that, everything we see in front of us has some kind of esoteric. Man, I got this adapter. This adapter sucks. It keeps messing up on me. Having some technical troubles. That's what happens whenever Justin leaves us, right? We have technical issues. But it's okay. This adapter sucks. We were about done anyway, so it's all good. Yeah, so that was Atlantis. Next week we'll get into the secret society symbolism and all that shit. First little deep dive into Manly P. Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages. So that's pretty awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. This has been a fun one. Atlantis is a wild story, dude. We don't want them to create this one world Luciferian philosophy technocratic state that they're trying to create again. That's for damn sure. That's what I know. But Rogan is a Luciferian Musket. Yep, she's back there on the Rogan part. Hell yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry about the mic issue. It's definitely because of this thing. I got a USB-C, so I tried to make it into a USB, and that shit does not work. But whatever, it's okay. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little book club, little chill pod. We're just hanging out. Deep dive kind of. If you got to go back and listen, I don't blame you, because there's a lot of reading, but it's honestly really worth it. If you guys, are into this, let me know. Definitely give me your feedback. It's, we can try something else, definitely. Because I can just read it and then break down the chapters as well. So whatever you guys prefer. But I think it's sometimes nice to get straight quotes, straight out of the book to wrap your mind around. So I'll see you all next week. We got a lot of bangers coming out this week. Probably put this out as a bonus. And yeah, be on the lookout this week. We got some good guests coming on. Thanks. Go hit up our Spotify, give us a little rate. Hit up our Apple, give us a review. Give us some love on all the apps, please. We could use it. And we will see you later. Peace out.